And hello and welcome to another edition of Vulcans Football 2015. I'm your host, Gary Smith, and on today's show, we are going to talk about all things Vulcan football. We're going to take a look back at last week's game against Indiana and take a trip around the PSAC with scores and standings, and then we'll talk about this upcoming homecoming week opponent, the Clarion Golden Eagles. I'm your host, Gary Smith, and joined, as always, by Sports Information Director Matt Keifer. We got some housekeeping. Matt was not golfing last week. He was working golf. There's a big difference, but the text was, I at golf. I didn't know what was going on. There was a lot going on in the station. My messages are wrong. But so Matt was hard at work last week at the CUTV golf event at Lone Pine Country Club.
Country clubs don't let me play golf. I'm that bad of a golfer. They barely let me on the course to take photos and do what I need to do for my job. So there's no way I was golfing there. It was cold, somewhat, but not nearly as bad as yesterday. Getting the autumn chill in the air definitely means it's mid-year for basically Vulcan football.
Well, I had to make the mistake. I had to turn the heater on yesterday. It wasn't November 1st, but I just couldn't take it. The other thing is we're about 10 minutes late because both Matt and I had to go to the electronics store. The remote control went out last night because I know I was flipping back and forth between wrestling and Monday Night Football. Matt, I know you were going back and forth between Blue Jays postseason baseball and Monday Night Football to see the Star Wars trailer. And I just want to know, what did you think of that?
Well, I got to be happy the Blue Jays won. It's 2-1 now. It's back to being a series. So anytime the offense gets rolling like that, you think it has a chance. But I know you're asking about the Star Wars trailer. It just happens to come out a week after my birthday, so it's a nice present George Lucas and company decided to give me this year.
And there's no truth to the rumors that we were on the Vulcans Football 2015. We're in contention to be the world premiere of the Star Wars trailer. We finished third or fourth behind Monday Night Football. But enough of that nonsense. The real reason we're here is to talk about Vulcan football. And last week, California took part in probably their biggest rivalry, the Coal Bowl against IUP. A little bit different this year, Matt, with the game being at night. First Coal Bowl under the lights. The Cold Bowl, as it was.
Yeah, you and I have basically seen almost every one of these Coal Bowls. We've seen nice weather. We've seen bad weather. We've seen crazy polar vortex weather with snow in the middle of October that basically covered the field. You didn't know how they were going to play the game. We've seen Hail Marys at the end of a half. Basically anything you could think of in this series. Oh, also forgot the onside kick and an 80-yard play at home to bring him back in the contest. So this game has definitely seen its ups and downs and seen some big moments in big stages. And this was an interesting one just to play under the lights, to give it a different feel. I know IUP wanted to get a home game this year. I think the coach looked at the schedule with his AD and they said, you know what, why don't we try to do something a little different, spruce up the Coal Bowl with something new, figuring both teams wouldn't mind going prime time in essence.
And it was kind of a nice little change going under the lights for that game. A little weird because I don't think the crowd was as big as anybody anticipated, but I think that was more due to the fact that it was pretty cold. It was about 40 degrees if you were being generous at kickoff. I think by the end of the game when we were tearing down and you were writing your stories, it was probably closer to freezing or under freezing. But California going into that game, coming off of a tough loss on the road to Slippery Rock, wasn't hard probably to get back up because that's your biggest rival in IUP. Hard-fought game, just California ended up on the wrong end of a 2015 score, but they had chances in that game.
I mean, it's one of those things, you look at the score, it was a 5-point game, yeah, but it easily could have been double digits either which way. IUP missed some chances in the game, then Cal missed some chances as well. Cal basically got that short onside kick, not sure really what that is. I've watched the replay a couple of times, can't tell if it actually hits anybody or not. But it really brought second life back to the Vulcans there after just scoring a touchdown. And they had a chance at the end, looking into Desmond Green, the end zone just fell incomplete. Vulcans actually didn't hurt themselves with penalties. That was a big thing I looked at the end of the game. Like, okay, so what's the red zone, what's the third down, and what's the penalties? Because if you win those three things, you have a good chance of being in the game. Really, the only one they won was penalties. They only had 3 penalties, so that was a positive note, but definitely need to convert in the red zone. I think they really only scored 3 times in 7 trips, which against a team of quality of an IUP or most teams in the PSAC this time of year, you won't be able to do that and be too successful.
It was the second week in a row Cal had the red zone-itis because against Slippery Rock 2 weeks ago, they were able to move the ball back and forth, couldn't put points on the board. Saturday, California opening kickoff, when the way they moved the ball down the field off the opening kickoff, I thought, okay, things are clicking. This could be, a pretty high-scoring affair. But then, the game settles in, and IUP's defense did a good job bottling the California offense. And IUP's offense, run-oriented. If they're clicking, you're not going to get the ball for a long stretch of time.
Run-oriented might be an insult to the idea of run-oriented offenses. I mean, IUP passed the ball 7 total times in that game. Under 100 yards, obviously. Definitely more of a running back more than a quarterback back there. But give credit to Signetti and that offense. They know what they are. They know what they want to do to win games. It's not a surprise. It's the same kind of offense, basically. We've seen just with a running quarterback now. We've seen Harvey Tuck. We've seen the Williams before. Now it's Chris Temple's turn to go in there with the running game. And they just found a way to really control the clock. They work move down the field. Every play, every possession seems like one of those 10 to 15 play drives, unless they break a big run here or there, which, again, with that running back, is a little bit shiftier than Harvey Tuck, that you and I both remember. Speaking to their SID, and we both think that he has every chance to be as good, if not better, if he's not there already.
Well, he was a different. I mean, Harvey Tuck, it seemed like he was a guy you point him in a direction and just go, and if there were people in front of him, fine. If there weren't people in front of him, fine. Chris Temple, he had some moves, but he was also a good straight-ahead runner. But you'll see in the highlights later the long touchdown run he made a couple really good moves, and the Cal secondary is pretty athletic, so that's a heck of a quality football player to be making moves like that.
He's almost a combination of Williams, who was his predecessor. They had a couple 1,000-yard years after transferring from D1, and then Harvey Tuck, who was, as you said, more of the masher. So that sort of worked right into their skill set. I know last year when IEP and Cal met, Dwayne Carswell was a big wide receiver, almost A.J. Jackson size, the name you and I remember, a guy about 6'5", 240 pounds. You can't really match up with that. It's almost like looking at Gronk against DBs in the NFL. It just doesn't work when there's that much size disadvantage. And that's about the only proportion you can go with to make it seem like how man among boys you basically would be position-wise. Vulcans were able to make them just be basically the only plays last year they had was to Carswell and DeSico. But other than that, they didn't really have much of an offense, where this year it was strictly run, run, run.
And A.J. Jackson, when you said that, I still picture him catching the back end of a football at Shippensburg in the NCAA playoffs. Not sure if they were going to put a statue up to him in that end zone, because I think you remember the play 2 weeks after Cal lost the PSAC championship game, made an amazing catch, and Cal was off and running in that run to the NCAA playoffs that year.
A.J. Jackson's just one of those freak athletes that doesn't come around too often. It's hard to believe he's been gone as long as he has. He's actually on the Hall of Fame ballot this year. That's how long he's been gone. But it's a name you and I both remember, and basically it just seems like yesteryear he was here.
Well, now that I'm depressed that the years are going by very quickly, let's take a look back at Saturday's Coal Bowl action between California and IEP, and right after the break, we'll see the highlights of last year's game at Clarion versus the Golden Eagles. You're watching Vulcans Football 2015 right here on CUTV.
Now it's going to be a handout to Wheeler. He gets into the inside. He's got some room, and he's going to go into the end zone. Touchdown, California. And shotgun. Man in motion is Brown. Williams hands it up the middle to Temple. Temple breaks three. He gets to the outside. There's no one there. Temple into the end zone. Touchdown, IUP. Missed it. Brazil's kick is up, and this one is good. So Brazil kicks it right through the uprights and makes it 9-7 California with 3:21 to go here in the first quarter. There's some motion. Temple into the end zone, though. It won't matter. There's no flag anyways, as IEP goes into the end zone for the touchdown. It's 13-9. Williams gets a snap. Hands off to Temple. He's up the middle, and he's in the end zone. That's the third touchdown of the night for Chris Temple. Now it's going to be a handoff, and the ball is out. Let's see who comes up with it. Looks like California may have it. If they do, this could be big. And it's California ball. Pitch to Franklin. In the end zone. Touchdown, California. And just like that, the Vulcans are back within 5 points. Brazil kicks it away, and it's a short kick because of the wind. And it hit an IUP player. Let's see, California has the ball. Oh my goodness, it's shades of 2012 all over again, ladies and gentlemen. Oh my goodness. Harris, back to throw. Into the end zone, and it's intercepted. Oh my goodness. Harris gets a snap. Throws in the end zone. Des Green can't get it.
The time is now, the place is here. Stop running, face your fear. When it all come down to this, you only get one shot, can't afford to miss. The time is now, the place is here. Stop running, face your fear. When it all come down to this, you only get one shot, can't afford to miss. So, let's get it, let's go. Go hard and go home.
Since
Since 1937, the Student Association Incorporated, known as SAI, has served the Cal U student body by providing activities, programs, and services. Every enrolled student has the ability to take part in over 125 different clubs and organizations. Managing participation in every SAI activity is easy with OrgSync, a powerful tool for staying connected. Located 1 mile from campus, the SAI Farm has 94 acres of meeting and recreational space. SAI, it's your student association. For almost 30 years, CUTV has been the campus and community home for local news, sports, and entertainment. Broadcast in 100,000 homes in southwestern Pennsylvania, CUTV provides complete coverage of Vulcan sports as well as high school football coverage. Broadcast weekly live, CUTV News Center provides coverage of local and campus events, weekend weather, sports highlights, and feature stories. For more information on CUTV, check us out on the web, friend us on Facebook, or follow us on Twitter.
Back to throw on 3rd and 8. Fires. He's got it complete to Tom Green. Touchdown, California. Simmons takes a high snap, fakes it to Simmons. Instead, Simmons is going to get in the end zone. Touchdown, Clarion. Harris out of shotgun, sidecar on either side. Hand off to Grissom. Grissom rolls right. And he cuts the other way. He's going to get to the 45, midfield, 45, 40, 35, 30, 20. He gets taken down at the 15-yard line. Here's a handoff to Roberson. Roberson, end zone, touchdown, California. Looks, steps up, fires. Intercepted by Aaron Terry. Fakes the handoff, throws, caught by Brown. Brown, 15, zigzags, 10, 5, waltzes in, touchdown, California. Here's Harris back to throw, fires down the field, he's got Kawan Scott. Kawan Scott, touchdown, California. High snap, controlled by Simmons, hands off to Thomas. Thomas to his left, fumble. It is recovered by California. Bobby Spencer Lynn, the senior out of Bell Vernon. And touchdown Clarion as Simmons faked the handoff to Thomas. Harris back to throw, looking, fires, intercepted by Julian Hauser. Hauser is at the 25, 20, 15, 10, 5, and he may have been taken out of bounds at the 1-yard line. And that's a touchdown Clarion had. Here's Nuzzo. 20-yard field goal attempt is down and good. Simmons back to throw. Fires. He's got a receiver wide open. That is Matt Lehman. Lehman gonna take it to the house. Touchdown Clarion. And a handoff to Roberson. End zone. Touchdown California. High snap. Ball is down. Kick is away. And it is good. Simmons takes a high snap and he hands it off to Thomas, and it is going to be a touchdown Clarion. Simmons pass. He is going to get taken down. That is a safety for California.
And welcome back to Vulcans Football 2015. I'm your host, Gary Smith, and that was the highlights of last year's game versus this upcoming week's homecoming opponent, the Clarion Golden Eagles. And once again, I'm joined by Sports Information Director Matt Kiefer. And Matt, Clarion, a team that California has handled pretty well for the better part of 15 years, and you're saying off the break, they haven't won at California in a long time.
They haven't won at Cal since 2000. They've had a couple games at home up at Memorial Stadium. You and I both know that's a tough place to play sometimes. They've won 3 times up at home since they've won here, but they haven't won here in over a decade, almost a decade and a half. And Cal hasn't lost a homecoming game since 2004. So you look at the numbers, it looks pretty good for Cal, but there's one number I think that most people will be shocked with the Golden Eagles is the 0, and that's their loss total right now.
And before we get to that, I remember that 2000 game because I was calling radio. Wesley Cates was going in for the game-clinching touchdown, fumbles it. Clarion's one of the defensive players picks it up, runs it about 70 yards to the 20, and Clarion goes in for the go-ahead touchdown. So a little bit of history for you. But this year's Clarion team, as you said, 7-0, and I don't think anybody saw that coming. And you can pretty much, if you're engraving trophies at the PSAC office, probably put Coach of the Year on that plaque for that turnaround.
I mean, Chris Weibel, he'd been an All-American quarterback. He was up at Clarion in the mid to late 90s when they made the semifinals of the NCAA playoffs. He was the quarterback on that team. He's been with the program for 10, 11 years as a coach. Last 2 years as OC. Well, Jay Foster leaves at the end of the last season. They had really about one good year in the last 5 or 6 years, but it just wasn't really enough for what they needed there. They hired from within. Everybody thought, okay, this is just Clarion doing a Clarion type, maybe hiring somebody, maybe a local guy, things like that. Well, he's rejuvenated that program probably more than any coach in his first year in the PSAC in a long time. 7 wins for a team that hadn't won, I think, 7 games since that 1 year in 2009
It's been a
combined.
while.
So, and the thing is, you look at that roster, it's going to look extremely familiar to the team it was last year. Connor Simmons is back at quarterback. He's putting up some amazing numbers, basically the best numbers since Weibel was a quarterback there. He's got 25 touchdowns this year, just 4 picks, leads the league in completion percentage. So he's and also has the ability to run the ball. As we saw last year, he scored a touchdown on the ground against the Vulcans. So it's something you can't just turn your back to when the guys are downfield. You can tuck it and run it a little bit. Got a nice little running back there who was one of the top Whitfield rushers a couple years ago out of Steel Valley. So they got a local product there. And on defense, they're one of the top 3 or 4 in the league, and they lead I think they're second in the league in sacks behind the top 2 guys. So the O-line and James Harris are going to have their hands full, in addition to just the defense.
And when you mentioned that fact when we were off the air about, pretty much everyone's coming back, that's hard to do because with a turnaround like that, because usually if you see a team suddenly going from 2 or 3 wins to 7, 8 wins next year, you're thinking, okay, coach is coming from outside, transfers, big time recruits, but that's a credit to the head coach, and that's just tough to do.
I mean, it's one of those things I think we saw similar with Shippensburg with Mark Majewski, who was at Edinboro. He ran a certain offense with Trevor Harris. He goes to Shippensburg, and he gets Zach Zulli basically to open it up and set all sorts of records and wins the Harlan Hill out of that. It's one of those things I think you run an offense maybe your coach wants, and then you give a little more freedom, whether you're the head coach or you go to a different coach that lets you do what you want in your philosophy. And he brought in, credit to him, he brought in somebody on defense that he wanted to do because he's an offensive guy, obviously being a quarterback. And the two are meshing extremely well. They're the story of the PSAC. They're ranked in the AFCA for the first time in program history. They're top 25 and also the D2 poll. So this is the first time Cal's going to face a team that's ranked in the AFCA poll this year. Slippery Rock fell out with the loss of Seton Hill the week before, or else they would have been right there with them too. But, I mean, this is the first time Cal's faced a top 25 team since last year. Slippery Rock on homecoming, which is also a win. So maybe that helps out Cal too.
But you got to look at the other side of the numbers. I mean, as impressive as the 7-0 record for Clarion is, if you just look at that number, it's impressive. But if you look at their schedule, you can't say they've played Notre Dame, USC, Alabama, and Ole Miss.
Well,
or LSU. I don't know why I said Ole Miss, LSU. But
well,
you got to win
right now either. You don't think they'll be playing them. Maybe you do because it's an easy
That's
win.
true.
But I think their first 3 games were like Cheney, Millersville, maybe Lockhaven, something like that for the crossover. So right there for a head coach, that's something like, okay, we can get our guys on a good rallying cry, maybe go 2-1, really surprise some people. Instead, they go 3-0, and then that momentum just builds and builds and builds. And you've seen that with teams here. When you start winning and you maybe weren't expected to win, that just has such a huge advantage going forward. I think they've scored over 40 points in almost every game except one. It was Millersville. It's sort of an odd game. You figure everybody's putting up points on them. But at the same point, they're not letting anybody really get in rhythm. I think Mercier's is probably the only team they faced so far that was in the top half of the preseason poll. But Clarion themselves is proving what's a preseason poll worth? Absolutely nothing.
Yeah, and I tell you what, if you look at their schedule after this, they're going to make their bank on this next couple weeks. I believe after us they play Slippery Rock, IUP, and I forget who they are.
I think it's South Gannon.
So yeah, so they got a tough end.
Yeah, they're ending up on a very strong second half of their PSAC schedule.
Well, let's take a look around the PSAC last week's scores on Saturday as we're slowly getting towards the end of the season. Starting first in the PSAC West, you see the Coal Bowl, IUP 20, California 15. Thursday night showdown in Erie, PA, Gannon and Edinboro. And that game, at one point was 49, I think 49-20 something, and Edinburgh came back to almost shot Gannon.
Well, we saw Edinburgh when we went up there a couple of weeks ago, assisting at quarterback. They can put up some points relatively quickly, so not too surprised at that. But again, anytime Gannon still has Nadler at quarterback, if they get the ball late, I'm still taking Gannon's chances most of the time.
And then another game in Erie, PA, Slippery Rock at Mercyhurst. Slippery Rock surviving Mercyhurst 35-24. And that was a game going into last week, you're rooting for Mercyhurst because if you're California, you can run the table. Slippery Rock takes another loss, then
you need a little bit of help there.
Yep.
But I mean, Mercyhurst is never an easy place to play. Slippery Rock, I think it's the first time they've ever won there. So Cal's not the only team in the PSAC that has trouble up at Mercyhurst.
And then the last game in the West, the 7-0 Clarion Golden Eagles holding a home field advantage against Seton Hill. And a game that was close at the beginning, and then Clarion just kind of leaned on them and won, going away 44-29.
Yeah, Clarion's running back went for over 200 yards. And Seton Hill, we saw they were definitely a marked improved team. I mean, in years past, 30 points would be like, oh, great, that's actually holding Seton Hill down. They're that kind of offense this year.
And going over to the eastern side of the state, some interesting numbers here. Shippensburg, Westchester. I did not see that coming, Matt. 27-11.
What, the 11 or the Westchester?
A little bit of everything
points?
on that. I'll take everything out of both columns there.
Yeah, it's one of those things. I think Westchester was coming in and defeated East play. They were really still trying to fight to get back because they had a couple early crossover losses that hurt them. But credit Shippensburg finding a way to hold down Westchester. Not an easy offense to contain. And basically, it looks like probably only one offensive touchdown given that number. That's pretty good for Shippensburg's defense.
And I tell you what, we both know Shippensburg's a tough place to play as a road team because you could get a beautiful central PA day or you could get a windstorm going through there. So not sure what the weather was at Shippensburg on Saturday, but a big win for the Red Raiders. Bloomsburg surviving a tough, feisty Kutztown team, 27-21, and that was a game I was looking at that could be a possible upset.
I mean, it's just one of those things. Kutztown's found a way to beat IUP the last couple of years. Bloomsburg's a team that doesn't really score a whole lot, so you figure if Kutztown gets that game to maybe 28 points, you really like their chances. But Bloomsburg's defense, credit to them being able to keep on to that game and get that win.
And East Stroudsburg continuing to Millersville's misery this year, 34-2. Millersville getting a safety, so good for the defense there.
Way to avoid the shutout, I guess.
And then Lock Haven, battle of winless teams. Lock Haven 56, Cheney 20 at Lock Haven.
First win of the new head coach for the Bald Eagles there, so good for him to get that win. Then you got Millersville Cheney coming up in a couple weeks. That'll be an interesting one to see who gets that W.
Yeah, let's take a look at how things shake out after week 4 of conference play. And it's still hard to believe the Clarion's up top. No one saw that coming at all at this point of the season.
They were last in the preseason poll. That's literally worst to first, and they're taking it to heart. And right now, I mean, you can say they maybe haven't played the toughest of schedule, but you know what? They've beaten everybody on there, and they're the only team in the conference that can say that.
Well, as we're starting to come down to the last 3 weeks of the regular season, there's the PSAC West bid is pretty much up for grabs because Clarion's 4-0, IUP's 4-0, Slippery Rock's 3-1. Clarion has to play IUP and Slippery Rock. Slippery Rock has IUP, but both Gannon and California are lurking right there. So anything literally could happen in the next couple weeks.
It's going to be very interesting to see how it all shakes out. It's one of those things you might be playing spoiler. You might have a chance either which way. You got to take every game as if it means something and try to get those W's.
And you see in the PSAC West, 5 of the 8 teams have winning records. Clarion 7-0, IUP 5-1, Slippery Rock 6-1, Gannon 5-2, and Cal 4-3. So a very competitive West division. In the
Mercyhurst one might be almost as shocking as the Clarion, just because at this point in the season, they're normally at least starting to hit their stride. They're always a second-half team in terms of the season schedule, but they just really have struggled to get anything going this year.
I think they've had some injury bugs, too, which doesn't help. Switching over to the PSAC East, and it's going to be another race to see who represents the division in the state game in a couple weeks. Bloomsburg atop 4-0 in the division. Then you got Shippensburg, East Stroudsburg, and Westchester right there, 3-1. Even Kutztown not out of it yet with 2-2.
I mean, with East Stroudsburg's quarterback, he can definitely put up some points. Bloomsburg plays that tough run game. Shippensburg a little bit of a mix of both, and Westchester probably the best tight end in the conference, who's a legitimate touchdown threat anytime he gets the ball. So it'd be very interesting a couple weeks in Kutztown. They can put up points, so I wouldn't be surprised to see them maybe get one of these teams at the top of them and sort of maybe ruin a PSAC championship berth for one of those teams as well.
And I tell you what, we're getting to that part of the year. We can actually start looking and trying to play devil's advocate when it comes to the NCAA playoff berths. There's going to be a lot of pressure on every team in the PSACs because if you look at the overall records, 5-2, 5-2, 4-3, 4-3. I don't think this year you're going to see maybe one team with 3 losses in the playoffs.
That extra,
maybe,
that
yeah, the
extra 7
berth.
teams really helps out. It's still a week or 2 away, but that third loss, you cannot afford more than 3. And even then, you can't. Any of those 3 cannot be a bad loss either.
So make sure you keep watching Vulcans football, and we'll break it down, or check out the PSAC website at psacsports.org, or Kyle Vulcans, you're always going to have everything that you need to know in the PSAC and your game notes, which is always good.
We're going to try to keep everybody posted there no matter what, win, lose, or draw.
And let's take a look at this coming week's schedule. Another Thursday night game, Mercyhurst at Edinburgh. It seems that if you're inside of Erie County up there, you're going to play somebody's going to play Thursday night.
You got to play Thursday because you don't know what the weather's going to be on Saturday, I guess.
And then as you look down the schedule, I'm going to pick out a game other than the California Clarion game to look at that I think would be good. And I know which one you're going to look at. So I'm going to look at Bloomsburg Westchester.
I was going to look at.
Oh, never mind. I'll look at IEP Slippery
one.
Rock then. I'll look at IEP Slippery Rock. That's a game that could be, when it all shakes out, could be for the PSAC West title.
It's one of those things we've seen both teams in the last 2 weeks. Both have great running offenses, a little bit different style. Slippery Rock, that spread run. IEP, more the traditional pro, straight at you kind of run. And Bloomsburg Westchester, that's always one of those games. You basically can throw out the records, but at the same point you don't want to because they're always vying for the PSAC East title. And
after that loss to Shippensburg, Westchester is going to be hungry. And, Bloomsburg's gone in there in the past on a high, and Westchester smacked them. So make sure to keep checking scores because we're getting to the exciting part of the season. And Saturday, make sure to clear off your schedule. Come on down to Adamson Stadium. It's homecoming 2015. The game is 3:30 p.m.
3 p.m.
3 p.m. I've seen 10 different, and I actually
last
changed
I've
that.
seen was 3 p.m.
Okay.
So we're going with 3 p.m.
3 o'clock. Yeah, ignore that.
Check Twitter and the website if it changes again.
Actually, guys, just delete that because there's a
See
graphic.
See how quick that is? It's 3 p.m.
Yeah,
You got it right.
Yeah.
Oh.
Thank you. Good job, guys. Because I literally changed it yesterday because I thought I saw it said 3:30. But 3 o'clock p.m. at Adamson Stadium. It's going to be a great game. Undefeated Clarion coming in here. As you said, they're ranked for the first time in a long time in the nation. California going to try and rebound after 2 straight losses. Game will be live on calvulcans.com. But also, if you're here, come. And then you can also watch the replay on Monday on CUTV 6 o'clock, Tuesday at 4 o'clock. And also check out CUTV Sports 1 to watch the YouTube video. And also it'll be live on the WCAL 91.9 FM online only. But make sure to, if you have an Apple, to download the WCAL app. It is just launched this week or later last week. So make sure if you have an iPad or iPod or an iPhone, download it and keep in touch. Check out Matt's live tweeting. Check out everything because it's going to be a heck of a day.
It's been one of those things. Homecoming is always one of those great days for a football season. You always hope to get the win. And Cal's been successful at that for a decade now, so we'll see if they can keep the streak going again.
So that's about it for this week's edition of Vulcans Football 2015. We'll see you Saturday at Adamson Stadium to cheer on the Vulcans at 3:30 p.m. At 3 o'clock. Darn it! 3 o'clock. Just keep going to calvulcans.com. Matt'll take care of what time you need to be there. But be there at 2. Get there early. Avoid the traffic. But root on the Vulcans, and we'll see you next week on Vulcans Football 2015.